Please a round of applause for Laura and Amy.
I were joking on the way over. It's funny to come hear lawyers talk about neuroscience, but in our practice, we attend a lot of IEP meetings. We do a lot of preventive work and consulting work with families. We actually call a lot of what we do litigation avoidance to help get good plans in place or help people transition between settings. And so I think the most fun and the most creative part of our work is more collaborative with schools and clients, and it's about problem solving and putting strategies in place. And executive functioning is a huge part of that, and we have a lot of client interest around that. And so, based on my background in special education and social work, I've taught myself and looked into this just to become a better attorney and to become a better consultant in what I do. So we're trying to think about ways to make this meaningful for you all who are coming. And do you want to talk about yourself at all first before I launch into the worksheet?
Just launch on it.
Okay. Let's talk more about that. No. So if you didn't grab one of these at the door, we made worksheets. These are just the categories from Smart but Scattered. And the book that I was using, and I've got it in my slides as well, is a book by Krista Feiter, and he uses the Smart but Scattered categories for executive functioning. And this book is 101 Measurable IEP Goals. So I know not all of you are public school parents, and so not all your kids have IEPs, but even in the home or the community context, we think that well-written goals and objectives that are measurable and lend themselves to good progress monitoring can really serve families and students who are trying to problem solve around how to improve in this area. We were told mostly middle school, high school, just to get an idea. How many of you have children who are at the high school level? And then how many middle school? And then elementary? And then any pre-K? No? Okay. So we didn't include the slide on elementary, but you can speak to that anyway. Yeah. So what we were hoping you could do is while you're listening, we'd like you to be able to leave with something concrete and something useful. And so in putting this worksheet together, think about a particular goal you'd like to work on with your student. These categories are here, and I've got sample goals in each of the categories that I'll kind of lecture on first. But so as you're listening, if one really speaks to you or resonates with you as you think about your child, jot it down or take some notes, and then think about how that behavior looks across different settings. So in the school setting, in the home setting, in the community setting. And part of what we're talking about is how to kind of weave continuity and coherence through those settings for your goals so that you can track and strategize and build competency in a particular area for executive functioning. We've also made a note of, when we think about a behavior, you might want to prevent it, you might want to teach a new skill, you might want to work on extinction, reinforcement, replacement. These are some of the languages that we find in behavior intervention plans, and when we work with behavioralists in ABA or with psychologists or neuropsychs in our area. And so also we think about often in the IEP context, individualized educational programs, you'll often have an annual long-term goal and then broken out into short-term goals. So I made room for both of these. But we're going to leave time at the end for general questions, but also if people are interested to share some of the goals you drafted, or we thought we could even workshop them a little bit with each other as we think about how to draft goals that are meaningful for your student and how to make it really concrete. So that's the purpose of this, and if you want to write while we're speaking or stop me anytime if you have a particular question that's going to inform your work product. Anything to add about our process? Or no? Okay. No. So, also we have in our preparation for today, Angela came across a really great handbook from the Jericho Public Schools in Utah, and it's organized by age. So there's a section for elementary, middle, and high, and then it really broke out some excellent behaviors and goals. So we thought we could just circulate this while we're speaking if you want to look at some kind of concrete examples to help inform your own goal setting. So we've got 4 that we thought we could just pass around and people could look at. Yeah. Okay. You can maybe tell I used to teach before law school. And I always did lots of visual slideshows for I did middle school and elementary school. Always with the visual supports.
All right, so I don't have a slide for grades 3 to 5, because I was told it was mainly middle school and high school. A lot of the skills kind of build. So your child in high school might need help with the skills that are listed as what a typically developing child would be working on at grade 6 to 8 and so on and so forth, going back and forward. But in 3rd grade, it's very similar. They should still be able to help with chores, just not more shorter chores, like about 15 to 30 minutes. Clearly your 3rd to 5th grader won't be babysitting younger siblings, but they can entertain a younger sibling. They should be able to bring their books and papers to and from school or to and from the work at the homeschool room. They should be able to complete homework assignments and plan simple school projects like book reports. And they should be able to keep track of a changing schedule. So that would be like, oh, I have music on Mondays, I have library on Tuesday, I have this other special on Wednesday. And they should be able to save money for a special object, and that's generally fostered through allowance. And then as they get older, they can obviously you build on the chores, so they can do chores around the home, they can empty the dishwasher, they can rake leaves, they can do, they can keep their own bedroom organized and clean. They should have their own organizational system for getting ready for school. As you move into the middle grades, you're not with one teacher most of the time with specials. You have different teachers that you have to get used to, and you have to be able to shift to each teacher's different styles and expectations. My understanding is that in some of the middle schools, they have like an A day and a B day, so the child has to know, is this an A day? Do I go to these classes? Is this a B day? Do I go to these classes? As they enter middle school, the projects become more long-term. They evolve from book reports to long-term projects. They have to be able to build in a timeline and know what needs to be done by when. And they should be able to refrain from breaking rules in the absence of an authority figure. And building on the skills that they learn in middle school, when they're in high school, they should be able to manage their schoolwork more on their own without prompting from the parents. They should hand their assignments in on time. They should know how to set up a study schedule. Again, they're going to continue managing timelines for long-term projects, but it's going to get more complicated as they have, they'll have a book report due in 2 classes, or they'll have a history project and math homework. And they'll have to be able to look into themselves and see where they need to make adjustments in their effort. So, okay, I'm working on this book report and it's due in 3 days. I've only figured out my book. This is what I need to do to get it done. Their goal planning should be more concrete at this time. By the time they're in 9th grade, we need to start thinking of what their goals are post-graduation. Through the school districts, this is generally done through something called transition planning, and that happens when a child is 16. Or it can start earlier, but it has to happen by the time they're 16. So the child needs to know, okay, what do I need to do to get my foot in the door at college? So what coursework do I need to take? The testing that you have to take, the entrance exams. Do I need to take the SAT? Do I need to take the ACT? Am I prepared to take a Compass test? Do I even know what that is? Where do I go to learn these things? The child needs to be proactive and figure these things out. These are all like really complex things. And if the child's goal isn't college, they need to understand what vocation they're going to go into and maybe think of employment opportunities that will help them prepare for that. As children get older and more independent, they need to learn how to make good use of their leisure time, which means pursuing activities out of the home, staying out of trouble when they're unsupervised, and thinking about obtaining summer employment. And another important thing in high school is with the inhibiting, which is a lot of the executive functioning skills that get flagged by schools because it's disruptive, is they need to learn not to engage in reckless behavior. They need to learn healthy use of time, they need to understand the consequences of illegal drug use and acting out and getting in trouble with the law and not being impulsive in those areas.
So that and the goals that we have circulating in these packets are aspirational, big picture, kind of where we'd like our children to arrive and where we'd like them to be performing. And so the question then is, how do we break that down into bite-sized goals so that we can target particular behaviors that relate to executive functioning, and how can we again go across home, school, and community to span different environments and figure out some really measurable way to show progress and to make sure that we are working towards those big picture goals of where we'd like to be achieving at the different developmental milestones. Yeah.
So like for instance, these are the developmental tasks that I listed they wouldn't make accurate or measurable goals. You wouldn't want to say, I want my child to be able to work effectively on a day-to-day basis and complete hand assignments on time, because that's like, okay, what, you break that into smaller pieces, like, okay, where is my child having trouble with this, and where are they having trouble with this? What's the wall that's keeping them from being able to do this?
So on your sheets where we talk about kind of long-term goals, those could be the more umbrella 5,000 foot. But as we break down what we're actually measuring and monitoring for progress, we're going to move towards goals in each area. So this corny book, I mean, it's really useful and granular. And he has a book called like 1,001 IEP goals, and then I found the 101 executive functioning goals. I found myself at IEP meetings, advocating really zealously, like, we need to have executive functioning. It's not just, here's a planner and a study hall. And everyone's like nodding vigorously, like, okay, what does that look like? And then I was like, oh gosh, I have to actually have something constructive to offer. Being an attorney in the special education context and the education context isn't just about getting them to say yes, it's about then providing kind of what that meaningful goal is going to look like. So I got this book for my own edification. I've used it a bunch, so I'll circulate this as well, and I recommend it. It was like $12 on Amazon. And then I've excerpted in each of the categories as we go forward. I'll talk about a goal that struck me as one that could move across contexts that I thought would be useful. So we can pass that around too. All about the tangible manipulatives for a presentation. So, and then of course the author drew from Dawson and Guar, smart but scattered categories. So same as on your worksheet, we've got the response inhibition, the emotional control, attention, task initiation, the planning piece, organization, and metacognition. And so I'm going to break each of those out and talk about what kind of concrete goals those actually manifest as. Oh, but first, Angela's going to talk about tools from home that we can use to help set up our students for success. So go for it.
Okay. So when we're teaching children executive functioning skills, what we have to be very careful is to not do it for them. We don't want to become their prefrontal cortex. We want to strengthen their prefrontal cortex. So to do that, and we also don't, of course, want them to have, we don't want to put a goal in front of them that they keep like throwing a planner at them and saying, here you go, you have a planner now, you should be able to figure out when all your assignments are. You have to teach them how to use it, but you don't want to always do it for them. So ways that can help your child use that part of their brain is using declarative language in the home, and we do this a lot with preschoolers actually. So for instance, you get home and you see their schoolwork all over the place. You don't say, you need to pick this up and put it where it goes. You say, wow, look, your papers are all over the place. And then you wait for a reaction, and then they stare at you like, yeah. And then you can say, okay, well, where does this go? Where do your papers go? And they might continue to stare at you like you don't know anything, but after a while, they'll figure out the game, because they're not going to get to do what they want to until they finish their conversation with you. So, oh, these papers go in your backpack. Well, can you go put them in your backpack, please? And then they start to learn how to do it. Another way you can do it is, before you get to the verbal prompting, you can do pictures. So this is at the front of the home, you put the pictures of here's your homework, and here's your backpack goes on this hook, and here's a picture of your backpack on the hook. So you get into the house and you say, oh, look, your backpack's on the floor. And then they look at you like, yeah, so. And then you point to the picture and you say, oh, look, and they say, oh, right, it needs to go on the hook. I guarantee it, if your kid wants to get to his video games, they will learn this very quickly, that I need to follow these visual cues and get them where they go. And then once the visual cues go down, oh, I don't want to have a 10-minute discussion with my mom about where my backpack goes, I'm just going to do it. But you have to give them appropriate scaffolding while they're doing it. There's also a ton of assistive technology to help you prompt your kids without actually you having to prompt your kids. When I was teaching my now 8-year-old how to get ready for school in the morning, we used the clock on the right here, on the left, the timer on the left, and we made it a game. Okay, and we started with like a ridiculous amount of time. Okay, you have 30 minutes to get dressed for school. If you can get dressed for school in 30 minutes, you're gonna get a sticker. And then every time we'd get it done, I'd move that timer up until we got to 5 minutes, and now we can get ready for school in 5 minutes. That took us 6 months. So it might go more rapidly with some children, it might take more time, but you scaffold them along the way, and when the timer goes off, it's not me saying, hey, you're not ready, it's me going in there saying, oh wow, the timer just got on and you have your socks on, what else needs to happen? The toothbrush is really super cool because it flashes for about 1.5 minutes. And the watches are cool because you can set them to go off after whatever time you want, but we use them for, okay, you focused on your activity for the amount of time I wanted you to, which is for my 8-year-old generally 20 minutes, and then he gets a 10-minute break, and then we go back.
We should clarify, it's a vibrating watch. I don't know if you can tell from the picture, it's not just an alarm, but so that, kinesthetic reminder. And then for those who aren't familiar with time timers, you can see the red going away, so it's a great visual way for them to track what does 40 minutes actually mean.
And then the clock on the right with the animals around it is a neat way to help children who haven't learned how to use a clock yet. And I honestly just learned about this clock and I think it's awesome and I wish I had one. But you can say to the child, first of all, it helps them understand seconds, minutes, and hours, and how hours are much slower than seconds and minutes. But you can say, I need you to have this ready by the time the hummingbird is on whatever animal, the frog, and it helps them get time before they get time. And then it's also very important in helping people develop executive functioning skills to help them learn how to organize their space. So they have to learn how to organize their time and also organize their space. It's very important and helpful to have a spot for everything. This can be challenging for parents who themselves don't have a spot for everything. The little HK on the side is the name of an organizer. Her name is Stacy Erickson, and she runs an organization clinic. And what she does is she will go into your house and she will set up, she has a background in child development, and she will set up your home so that it is conducive to teaching your child executive functioning skills. And also if you yourself need help with those skills, she can teach you those skills as well, because you're going to have trouble teaching your children executive functioning skills that you yourself haven't refined.
Excuse me, what's her name again?
Stacy Erickson, and the name of the company is Home Key Organization.
Yeah, the website is just homekeyorganization.com. I learned about it today from Angela.
Yeah, she's
Very
amazing.
interesting.
She'll come in and she not only organizes your stuff, but she sets up systems for you so that so that your plan stays in place. Because I know what happens to
Someone else is telling your teenager.
Right. And she'll come in and she'll do checkups. And that's also important too with organization, is setting a time, because all systems devolve, always, for everybody. So you get this system in place and they're doing it fine for a week and then it's like done. So you set a time, like on Wednesdays we're gonna put everything back where it goes because we know it's gonna fall out of place. So Wednesdays at this time we do that.
Did you say she also consulted with a school district?
She has consulted with school districts. School districts have paid her to go into homes of their students and help with the home to the home to school connection, so that when the child gets home, the environment is also not overstimulating, not chaotic. She's an amazing resource.
And you can have those coherent systems. So I have the time timer in my classroom, and I know Angela's got one in her home that they use at home. So that's the kind of really low-tech, simple strategies, but I think you get that cohesion and that coherency across settings.
Right, and if you're using the same strategies that the school's using, that makes it all that much, that makes it reinforcing. So that when they get home, they're not using a different method than when they're out of the home. And then again, be careful. And parents are probably the best at knowing what their child can do with support and what they need support with, what they can do with support and what they can do without support, but you have to be very careful not to just do it for them, even if it results in inconvenience for you. Because I know sometimes I just want to get out of the house and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna do it, I'm just gonna get everything ready because I need to go, but he's not gonna learn if I'm doing it for him. But I also don't want to make it so challenging for him that he has, that we're dealing with emotional control now, where he's on the floor having a temper tantrum because he honestly doesn't know how to do what I'm asking him to do.
Is there, I don't even know how to articulate it. Is there something, so, it sounds great when you're like, you teach them, you do the scaffolding, and you do the skill, and then hopefully they progress forward. But what if you have a kiddo who you have done this over and over and over? Like, put your dishes in the sink. Something that you've been working on since you were 2. Can you identify issues right then and there? If the natural consequences doesn't work for everyone, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Right, and what I find is really helpful in those cases is consulting with a behavior analyst.
Okay.
They can put together amazing programs that they can teach you to use to teach your children these skills, and they have a toolbox that I don't have. But yes, sometimes it takes just someone to tweak it, and you don't need like a full ABA program or anything like that. It's just someone coming in who understands behavior and can teach you what motivates your child.
Because that's what I'm trying to say. If you can't figure out the motivator, we've tried video games, we've tried, and
Right, and then
figure out
that's
what
their
is it.
specialty.
Okay, perfect.
So, and I do find that helpful, and my child's not on the spectrum, and he's not eligible, ABA is not even helpful for him, but we have consulted with BCBAs,
Okay, thank you.
just to help us like, okay, I can't figure this out, how can I make this work?
BCBA, Board Certified Behavioral Analyst.
Sorry.
So when we talk about ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis, that's a form of behavioral therapy, and a BCBA is the particular kind of certification. And often a BCBA, or a BCBA-D, which is a doctor of BCBA, oversee behavior techs who are kind of more on the ground working with kids to do applied behavioral analysis.
And they'll work on tasks like, how do I get my child out the door on time for preschool? How do I...
Or high school.
Or whatever. It doesn't
Or how
have
do
to
we
be
get to
preschool.
transition between classes or transition between tasks at home or
Right.
and no behavior is too granular for that kind of, that's the really data-driven interventions that are the expert level. So as attorneys, we rely on our experts a lot to drive. Angela and I have a lot of background, but we know what questions to ask, and then we rely on our experts to help inform that. So if I have a parent who calls and says, nothing is working and it's all falling apart, but I don't want to move to a super more restrictive environment until I'm sure that we're not doing everything we can in this setting, and so then we can bring in a behavioralist or a psychologist or a therapist or whoever the right expert is to do that intake, do that assessment, put a program in place, make sure it's being done. And then if that still isn't working, educationally you might need a more restrictive program. But we really try to exhaust everything in the least restrictive environment with as many supports and incentives as possible before we say, okay, this isn't working, and just junk it.
Another neat thing about working with BCBAs is they can identify behaviors that parents are doing that they're unaware of that are actually rewarding their child's behavior, that unwanted behavior. And sometimes it's just a little switch for getting the insight from someone who's not in the middle of it to say, wow, when your child doesn't want to go to bed, you get in bed with him and lay down with him and tell him stories and rub his back. You think you're soothing him, but you're really just like, he's going to keep throwing these fits because it gets his back rubbed at night. I mean, it seems so simple and parents don't notice that because
In it.
they love their child, they're calming them, so it's very helpful to get someone from the outside to help. And I think that's for typically developing kids helpful as well.
And in the school context, we would have what's called a functional behavioral assessment, an FBA, which is data gathering and observing across settings. And then that informs what's called a BIP, a behavior intervention plan. So that in public school is kind of our special ed setup. An FBA turns into a BIP, and that's part of the IEP, which is the Individualized Education Program. And you can email me and get all the acronyms if you'd like.
But actually have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, we also
on the
do
acronyms.
all-day trainings like the Washington Autism Alliance on legal
Special
principles,
ed.
which is not what we're doing today, but if you ever have any questions about that kind of stuff, it's what we do. But in the home setting, I mean, it doesn't have to be quite as formal as an FBA and a BIP, and then now finally, the grand reveal, each of the goals that I'm going to look at through these areas across settings that we can talk about. So for example, in the first category, I guess it's the second check, of improving emotional control, something that might be in an IEP, but you could also do at home is by June, the student will independently identify her own frustration using a Likert scale in 4 out of 5 trials. And so this is a kind of a scale that you could have in a classroom and also have at home or in a community setting, and you use the same scale and the same numbers and the same vocabulary with the students. So the very first step is familiarizing your student or your child when they're not triggered and not escalated, right? So they start to develop that vocabulary. But this particular goal is a little bit farther along where when they're frustrated, they can say, you know, I'm really at a level 2, I'm feeling anxious, or a level 3. And so that's a goal that we could then document. And so in 4 out of 5 trials, if you are able to be the data taker while you're also parenting, which is hard, or have the other parent or someone else or your behavioralist kind of have that role, or have your student, as you develop more metacognition, be aware of their own progress. But this is the kind of data point that we want to keep track of. So you start with a present level, maybe right now they're at 0 out of 5, and when they're upset, there's just no way they're going to say, I'm feeling a 3. But it's something that you build, and that's part of the scaffolding and supporting. And then when a student is escalated, can you get to 4 out of 5? How long does it take? And you track that in a log. And so that's a way across settings, or within a particular setting if you're having a targeted issue, that we could deal with emotional control, for example. Here's an example for building response inhibition. By June, the student will express his opinion or idea politely and independently in group conversations and listen to ideas. There's a lot there, and you could break that into several smaller goals if you needed to, or if it was appropriate. This is an imaginary child that I'm making this for. Here I made 3 out of 5 the goal, because you could really, I mean, maybe 2 out of 5 is the goal. Maybe you're just trying to get 40% of the time. That's the individualized piece. You know, how complex these goals need to be, what's the time frame, why June, you know, these are all of the individualizable pieces. But certainly a skill that could go across home, school, and community, and you could keep track of this data in the different contexts if you wanted to, or use the same goal language with your student to work on response inhibition. Strengthen and sustained attention. Here's a visual schedule like Angela was talking about. Most classrooms, I would hope, have a visual schedule because it's a universal support for all students to know what's coming next, but particularly for kiddos with executive functioning issues, it's important to have it laid out, the schedule with the visual support, so they can anticipate what's next and kind of know what's going on. And that's something you could certainly couple with a visual timer. So at 12 o'clock when it's social studies, you could set it for 45 minutes so a student can keep track of how much is left. If they have anxiety about transitions coming up, it can be a way to
You also don't have to make the picture so juvenile if you have an older child.
Yeah, of course.
You can, I mean, you can make them Pokemon doing things, you can make them...
Or just collage and make your own, you know.
That's right. Or you can make them more, like, cool. So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously your high school student might be really turned off by potty.
Right. I was trying to have examples for different ages,
So,
but there was a whole
like,
example.
if you're trying to remind your high school student that he needs to put on deodorant, you can put a picture of Axe deodorant there so that he knows, okay, first I brush my teeth, here's the toothpaste, and then here's the deodorant, because that's like really important at this age. And then brush hair, and then you draw a picture of a pretty girl and say, now you can go to school, and the girls will still
They all love you.
like the Axe commercials.
So checked. Hopefully not like the Axe commercials. All right, so teaching task initiation. This was, I did a 5 out of 5. This student is going to master this goal. And chunking a worksheet, Angela pointed out this had two pieces to it. First, you have to know how to chunk, and then you have to be able to complete the section. So maybe this is two goals that are compounded. I think in the sample that was written in the book, an assistant was helping to chunk. So this is something that could work across developmental levels, but you know, for as complex as a student in an AP class in high school doing a document-based question and learning how to respond, you know, in a time setting to just a younger student learning about 5-sentence paragraphs and learning how to chunk. I think using the visual of the highlighter and then measuring that. This one's more in the school setting, but you can do that at home, I suppose. That's pretty school specific. That's not
If you
so
want
much
general.
yeah. Oh yeah, homework at home. Here's a time timer, our favorite piece of low tech. This one was for promoting, planning, and prioritizing. Transitions are huge. So much with our clients, we see that's the biggest area of anxiety for kids. You know, in the community setting, in the home setting, but particularly in the school setting. And so we can try to minimize transitions, or we can try to address transitions, you know, by creating supports and scaffolding. And you know, if transitions are just a thing you can't get over for a student who want to minimize that, then that's a way to accommodate and modify. Or you could work with making transitions just more approachable.
Or you could do both at once.
Or you could do both at once. This is true. I included a comic about fostering organization. This one was about school setting again, but retelling instructions. 4 out of 5 days. So if you're saying, you know, take out your pencils, get a sheet of paper, and start your do now. And then if the IA is there, the teacher is there, and the student would then repeat back a list of directions. And that's something you could keep track of across settings to foster organization. Metacognition, thinking about thinking. So students, self-editing checklists. This is another example where, you know, it could be age appropriate. This one is for a student who's learning about capital letters and proper punctuation. But having these supports often on a desk, you know, for a student to be able to check and self-edit along the way.
And I still use these when I'm writing,
Oh,
like
yeah.
legal writing, I use them, I have it, like, check your sites, check your case law, check your formatting, like, I still use these checklists.
I should. I don't, but I should. All right, talk about this piece. This is us as, again, lawyers talking about behavioralism. So we're not behavioralists, but this is our kind of,
Well, as you're designing
Right.
goals, you have to think of these things,
Yeah.
let's come up on this, so I just want to make sure I do it in the right order. There's a number of things that you can do with behavior. You can prevent the behavior, so the goal would be, I want my child to stop doing whatever. You can teach a new behavior, so I want my child to do this instead of that. You can get rid of a behavior. You can reinforce a behavior, and you can actually, that's where I was talking about, the parents sometimes are reinforcing behaviors that they don't really want without knowing it. And then you can replace a behavior. And that's where you provide a child with a new behavior opposed to the old, like dropping. We don't want her to drop her coat on the floor, we want her to hang it on her hook. So you're replacing dropping on the floor with hanging on the hook.
and when, in the school context, again, in the functional behavioral assessment, part of what a behavioralist would be looking for is also what's the motivation? Is it attention seeking? Is it escape seeking? These are the kinds of questions that we're asking about what's motivating the behavior. And then as we're targeting them in the behavior plan, then this is when you're trying to prevent, teach, extinct, reinforce, or replace. And so we've included those also in your worksheet for you to think about, you know, does your child already have a behavior that you want to cultivate more of? Are you looking at a negative behavior that you're trying to get rid of? And if so, what are you going to replace it with? And then this is an inspirational photo of Angela's son doing glass blowing today.
He has very severe ADHD. He has almost zero impulse control. He does take Ritalin, it helps a lot, but yeah. If you asked me at age 4 if I would ever let him in 4 years even get close to that fire, I would have said, are you kidding me?
Did
So
you get
this
a job
is-
today?
This is me being a proud mom, saying that your child can overcome some of their executive functioning difficulties and be very successful.
So that's our overview. We wanted to give you some time to workshop some goals.
Because it's so individualized, it's hard to give a workshop on what are good goals without knowing the children and knowing what's going on. So we thought we'd have this worksheet and make it a little more personal for everybody so that it could be more of a meaningful experience. So
So we'd like to take maybe 5 to 10 minutes and we'll circulate and work with your neighbors, and work out some goals. If you don't have a pen, you can just think about it and talk about it. If you can't grab a pen, I might actually have some in my giant lawyer bag. But let's take some time to write up some goals and think about some target behaviors for your student that you want to address. And we'll keep an eye on the time.
Kids that are getting ready to head off to college or.
Well, not college, but if he wanted to go, he's that age.
Yeah, I was just curious because we're kind of finally realizing that our senior is not ready. He really, really wants to go, but not, taking the initiative in the whole college application. Has been holding his hand, making sure he fills out all the forms. So I'm just curious if anyone else was in that situation and they're going to maybe delay college, and if there's resources out there to help kids that are needing a year to just learn more about their EDD and get ready for college, because he certainly has the brain and the aptitude. It's just all these challenges that would prevent him, from succeeding in college right now, not in the future, but right now. So it's hard to find that.
Do you think he would be able to take the 1 or 2 courses at a community college?
He would, yeah, that's definitely,
Because that's a great
he
stepping
would.
stone.
Got to get his head around that whole thing about, I think he just wants that 4-year college experience.
Sure.
And so I definitely think he would do well, and it would kind of be this stepping stone. It's getting him
Always working
around.
on finances.
Yeah. But also just, it's hard to find resources, I think, out there if I've had to micromanage for so long that they get to the point they're sick of listening, but they need help kind of acknowledging and taking ownership of what some of these challenges are so they can do something about it, because they're the ones that are going to be having to live with that, so it's just hard to find those kinds of
I don't know what
resources.
the finances or whatever, but there's one college that, this is just online, right? Nothing else. I have, the kid that would be ready to be launched is not going to college. And the other one is just been worrying about college since she's been 5, because she doesn't have a good sense of time. Right? And there's a college back east called Landmark. And just online, it just seemed like something I'm going to look at for my other kids in 10th grade.
Landmark's well known. It's a really highly respected college for children with learning disabilities.
My kid is like the, sounds like yours, smart, but not really capable of.
Is Landmark supportive and also, in terms of what it produces?
It does. I highly recommend that you do more research into the college. It's a fantastic college.
Okay.
It just, according to what I remember and what it is, it doesn't, it has
on the
a lot of
East Coast,
2
it's pricey.
years. Pardon me?
It's on the East Coast. It's pricey.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that's what I meant, that was a code word for
Yeah.
resources. Okay, so, but they have a 2-year program, and then getting them ready for, taking care of themselves. But I think that they have some 4 years, so too.
They have academic programs. They're degree granting college.
Right, but they have the both way, and they also have, what I'm looking at for my daughters, they also have a, like a summer program between, like you're going to this school. Anyway, that was something that I was looking at. For my son, the thing that's the same is like you're launching them out there, and they gotta do this stuff on their own. I am crossing my fingers for my son. We're looking at just a year to grow up more, which is AmeriCorps, because he's going to have to still be with people that he really likes helping. But I'm not saying that's the right thing for you, but it's like they have these transition programs, but they're for kids who they seem to be for kids that are not, that need.
That aren't cognitively advanced.
There we
Reminds me a
go.
lot of, is the same language when you're trying to figure out if your kid is ready for kindergarten. If you have like the late summer boy birthday and you're like, do they need another year before you start them in the academic track? And, but it's similar, you sometimes need that. And it's, obviously the stakes are a lot higher when it's.
My daughter's in a similar situation. She's in 10th grade. She's wanted to be a veterinarian since she was 5. Fully capable. She's so smart and has the passion and that scientific way of thinking. But she just doesn't turn in her homework. And it's, you know, the teachers and parents, we've done like everything we can think of. I even had to put in the IEP that the teachers have to go up to her, say, give me your homework, and take it in their hand. I mean, that's how.
Does she do her
specific-
homework?
Well, she does her homework. That's another thing that she needs help with, is just someone to, you know, keep her on task with her homework. But even once it's done, it just sits.
There are 50 ways to not get credit for your homework, and not doing them is one of them. One out of the, I mean,
So our son just got a new IEP set up, because we were living here before, and they're gonna give him an iPad, and there's an app on it where he can take pictures of the worksheets, because he has an issue with writing also, they can't read it. But then they have something that they can turn in automatically then. So then it just goes out, and this is in Seattle Public Schools.
well, but
That helps.
that took care of, I mean, when my daughter's teachers, the ones that have gotten it, that took care of, you know, remembering to print it out, going to get it from the printer, not petting the dog on the way, and it gets here, and poking 3 holes in it, putting it in a notebook, putting it in the right place in your notebook.
Remembering to take it out, putting it in the right spot in school, yeah.
Right,
no.
right.
So what does the app do? They can turn it in somehow, with some app, they put it in and it gets
The
turned in.
work,
So it's
the
all
homework,
electronic.
or-
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay. And a
everything's
lot of
electronic.
schools-
So
a
they
lot
still
of
have to
schools
remember
have
the
their own
school app.
Skyward. Yeah, a lot
I
of
mean,
schools.
Google Class,
They use
Google Class,
Yeah.
my
Is your
daughter's
daughter
school uses-
comprehending the work? Is she making progress in her classes and getting it?
She had, well, when she pays attention, yes. But she also. when
Have
she
you
gets-
considered her trying to qualify for a running start class?
Yes and no. I would love her to be in Running Start, but she doesn't seem to have the motivation or attention to do that. She's a complicated.
It's so hard in these like workshops because I like to know so much about the kids that I'm
Yeah.
recommending roles for.
Yeah, I was talking to
But-
Laura, well, I'll definitely be,
We're gonna
calling
be
you
in
guys
favor.
because our daughter, she's really, I love her and I want to strangle her. Is that bad? Say to a lawyer.
I'm a parent too. I have a 22-year-old and an 8-year-old. I've been in their shoes. Well, sometimes once they get into community college, it is much easier because it's more focused to what they are actually interested in on and what they can sustain attention on.
Yeah,
To do all this journaling.
yeah, that's kind of the path we're looking at right now, but the concern is, you know, because her goal is veterinary school, which is actually harder to get into than medical school, all of those, you know, the application needs great grades, great undergrad, great, you know, starting like now, and she's not ready for that. But our vet who takes care of our dogs said, oh no, there were lots of like 40-year-olds in my vet class, and I'm like, oh, great, I don't worry anymore. So,
I mean, when you go to Running Start, you need to be able to manage your homework, you know, it's like.
Well, there's a lot less homework in college than there is in high school. I gotta tell you, my son did Running Start. He was failing every class in high school, and I said, this isn't working.
What's your other son?
My 22.
Not the 8-year-old's not.
No, he's very smart, but no.
Not quite, yeah.
No, we let him play with fire. We're not ready for we're not ready for college. But he was doing like D's, F's, horrible in high school, and I said, I know you have the capacity. You're going to take the Compass, and you're going to take one class. And we pulled him out of public school, and we did Running Start through the homeschool group. At that time, I think it was Cascade Parent Project. And all of a sudden, he could wake up, he could do night classes, which was his natural rhythm, right?
That is a big.
He didn't have to wake up at 7 a.m. anymore. He could go, he took classes at night. He picked which classes he was interested in. This was just high school. He wasn't going for a degree at that time, right? He was just taking classes. And it changed his complete trajectory. If he had stayed in high school, I have no idea if he would have made it into college.
Also self-esteem.
Right, and he was around people who wanted to be learning, and he was around people who had a different outlook on life. They weren't in that building because they had to be there, they were in that building because they wanted to be there. And he saw older people who were going back to college after making poor choices, and it changed where he ended up. But if I had said, oh, I don't think you can do this because look, you're still failing in high school,
Well, that's not why.
he just graduated from Western. He got a job as a software developer. He also has ADD. I was gonna cry when he was in.
That's what
That's
all software developers get.
Yeah, and a little bit of Asperger's.
That's all I recruit all day long. Yeah, they're all ADD and on the spectrum somewhere.
Right, but if he was trying to fit into a system that didn't match him and it was
Right.
killing him.
That's so great to know about Running Start, because we've kind of been discouraged.
I think people paint it as, oh, this is for the high achiever who completely knows
Well,
what
I
they're
was
doing.
just thinking, you know, which is a long time ago, and, you know, you're learn, and your cells drop out of your head when you get a certain age, but what, for me, I had to, what?
I said that's also a myth, but okay.
It's when you're managing two ADHD kids, you can't do all this stuff.
Right.
But I remember, I mean, you have to know that you have this much to read before the midterm, which is half your grade.
But it's a
And
topic you're
pacing
interested
yourself.
in,
Well, there's
Yeah.
that,
right? My child, he's
yeah.
like,
Yeah, that's.
computer science, I will totally focus
Yeah,
on
they
it.
do a deep
Hey,
dive
dude,
in
you're
it,
not
yeah.
gonna be able to do computer science if you don't learn how to write, so go take that grammar class. Sorry, it's gonna suck and you're gonna need my help, but
Yeah.
then you can keep taking the math classes that you wanna take. But I'm very passionate about transitioning from high school into the workforce and college, and I myself dropped out of high school because it didn't fit me, and I'm now I think, a fairly successful attorney. So look for alternate routes for your kids. They're out there. You don't have to conform to the boxes that are put in front of you. There are other ways.
That's another thing I was gonna say, Yellowwood is they're just starting something that would be a transition program. Maybe it's not, you know, but what you would be looking for, but it's not, whoever said the politically correct, the remedial, it sounded,
Well, yeah, most transitional programs for the 18 to 21 are more for, developmentally delayed young adults. And
Right,
so what
right.
about our high
so
school
they're,
kids who aren't ready?
so they've noticed among their school population, there's a kid that's, like, is he gonna be able to balance a checkbook kind of thing? And
Where's the other one?
it's a,
Yeah, it's a
Oh.
one-to-one learning, it's individualized learning, it's a.
They have some social groups too.
Yeah,
They've
they're
really-
just
they've really worked
starting,
hard on
like,
that.
I would like my son to do that this summer, but they might not be ready, it might be in June, or it might be this summer, it depends on how many people are interested.
Be creative. Be creative. There's
It's hard.
a path.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's definitely hard.
There's a
especially
lot
when you have
of almost
two.
good paths,
Also, I'll tell you the occupations of the future are not going to look like the occupations that are available today. Like, one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got from my mom was, don't learn how to type. And then I was like,
What?
yeah. She's like, don't learn how to type, you'll get stuck just doing boring typing job.
Oh, well, yeah.
Everything is typing, right? That's not terrible, but. So like balancing a checkbook, for instance, right? That may be
Well, I
a
meant just,
reality,
I
right?
meant just not specifically that, but just being able to think about
Yeah.
that there might be something that you want to do tomorrow and you have to plan for it.
Sure, but I think to her point too, is a lot of software engineers have molded the world to them, not that, they didn't check the boxes and they didn't go through the rigor and they didn't go through the stuff, they went to the thing that they were passionate about and they
Yeah.
adapted to the world through that. So having a different perspective and a different way that your mind works is not
Right,
necessarily going to make your life difficult.
right.
I'm gonna call it and end our presentation. So thank you for having us.